The Luminous Mind, episode 11.
One thing I love about Apple's logos and sayings they've had in the past, I love the saying that they have called think different. I love that because I think that's really what's required. If you want to get different results, it requires a different way of thinking, a different way to apply principles to then get different results.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter, Chris Miles, the cash flow expert, is the leading authority on how to quickly free up and create cash flow for thousands of his clients, entrepreneurs, and others internationally. He's an author, speaker, and radio host that's been featured in U.S. News, CNN Money, Bankrate, and has taught thousands, getting them fast financial results. In fact, his first clients find $33,000 in their first year alone. Chris consistently teaches people how to do what no other financial advisors can or will: achieve financial prosperity now and in the future while spending time doing what they love the most. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us.
You bet. It's such a privilege to be on. Thank you.
This probably seems like a strange topic for my listeners to talk about financial means, but here at the Luminous Mind, we really believe that our financial matters have a lot to do with strong families. So we want to help free up cash and create a good financial footing so that our families can choose to do what they love, their educational options, and then also to create better marriages. I definitely have a belief that when you have a good financial relationship with your spouse, you have a better marriage with them. So
That's right.
So I told our audience a little bit about you. Would you please expounding upon yourself and what your business is?
You bet. So like all things, I started out going into school for the thing that is what I'm not doing today, which is I was doing sociology. That was actually my focus. I was going to go into business consulting, but I figured if I was going to do that, I should probably have a real business, not just book smarts, right?
Yeah.
So the first business that came across my way that really just drew me in was being a financial advisor. And so I did that for 4 years. I actually dropped out of college with one class to go before I got my bachelor's. And I decided to go the entrepreneur route because I really love having that control and that freedom to do what I want and to kind of write my own destiny, write my own story.
Yeah.
And, I just didn't want to have the typical traditional status quo kind of life. And so I went be an entrepreneur. I did that for 4 years, and I learned something pretty quick because I like to look at evidence. I like to look at what's reality. And after 4 years of being a financial advisor, I realized that the truth was that clients, the people who have worked with financial advisors for decades aren't any better off than anybody else. In fact, in some cases, they're worse off.
That's kind of scary.
It is.
You're paying them to help you.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine. My pocketbook's tied to it. My integrity is tied to this, right, as well. And I'm meeting with people that have gotten decades of advice, and the financial advisors have since quit or whatever. And people are asking me if they were thrown in jail or whatever else. Because, if the market goes down, everybody hates you, right? The market goes up, they think they're genius, not the financial advisor. So anyways, it was really interesting. And it was really interesting because I remember I went to my brother-in-law who's from a very well-to-do family here in Utah. Mm-hmm. And he's had his own business and everything. And as I sat down with him, I spent hours preparing for this presentation to him to really wow his socks off, right? Because, it was 3 years before I had the confidence to even talk to him. So I go in with my best presentation, wear my best suit. I bring the best guy from my office to back me up because, through the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses.
Exactly.
Right? I go in there with just ready to blow, just shoot up the world. And after about, 40 minutes or so, he says, "Okay, Chris, that was kind of cool. So that's a nice presentation. So let me get this straight. Let me just make sure I understand what you taught me here. You're saying that if I just say I just gave you $10,000 to play with, you're saying you can make me 12%, because back then we believed you could actually get 12%.
Yeah.
You're saying you could give me 12%. That's like $1,200 a year." And I said, "That's right." And I'm thinking, and I'm even saying yeah, can you imagine how awesome that'd be after 40,000 years, You'll
I'll be dead by then.
Exactly. You'll be a millionaire by then. And so I'm like, yeah, that's right. And I'm thinking I'm all proud of myself, like he's in the bag. And then he says, "But Chris, I could take $10,000. I could put a down payment on a semi truck because he would sell trucks, right?
Yeah.
That was one of his businesses. And he's like, I could put $10,000 down on a truck, sell it a few months later, and make $20,000.
Wow.
So if you think about it, like I was promising him 1,200 at best, and that's even unrealistic. He was saying 20,000 in a few months, right?
Yeah.
And so his question that really got me was, so why should I invest with you? And the first thing out of my mouth was the same thing that any financial advisor would probably say in that situation, which is, well, you should be diversified. You shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
Basically, you should be buying my crap. and that was really, it really shifted me a little bit because it rocked my world. I really wanted to believe that what I had was good. But it's over the next several months, I started to realize more and more that what I was teaching was the status quo. It's like seriously getting educated by the normal school system, right?
Exactly.
Like you're getting trained by the system that doesn't produce results. And it wasn't until it was about March of 2006 I started getting mentored by millionaires, and I realized they didn't teach different things. They taught the exact opposite. And when I realized that, I said, okay, that's it. I can't teach this stuff anymore and be in integrity. So I quit. After 4 years, my business being at the best it's ever been, I quit. I said, I will no longer ever teach about money ever again. I will just teach ballroom dancing. That's it. And I did do that for a time, actually. But, it's interesting because I started getting mentored by those same guys, and it was July that same year. So just 4 months later, I was actually able to retire. Even though I didn't have a lot of money saved up, I had maybe about $3,000 in the savings account, if that.
Wow.
But I was able to create streams of income through business and things like that really allowed me to be free. And I was seriously working like a 3-hour work week. So take that, Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, that's how did you do that?
And the short answer is that the one key principle I focused on, and if you're going to teach your children anything about money, as well as first being the example in your own life, but teach your children about money too and how it really works, is that the one principle I really focused on was that dollars follow value.
Exactly.
That dollars follow the value you create for other people. And so I was constantly focusing on and really obsessing over the question of how can I create a win-win for people? How can I serve them in a way where money is just a natural byproduct? And for me personally, and this is different for everybody, but for me personally, the natural inclination was that I was really good at seeing the big picture, right? I'm really good at knowing a little about a lot. Which in the school system they would say, wow, good job, you're a generalist. That's fantastic, right?
Yeah.
No specialty there. You're perfect for private school. But it got me on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire almost. I should just one round before the televised, the television series.
Oh, wow.
But that's it, right? That was like all I could see making money is doing quiz shows, being the next Jeopardy Ken Jennings. But I was able to use that because I was really good at connecting people. I would see these two unrelated things and be able to bring them together. And so somebody would be asking for a problem. I'd say, you know what, you should go meet so-and-so. Go connect with them or go talk to them. And I would. And of course, the business owner that I connect them with, because they'd probably transact some sort of business, they'd be thrilled. And I would just say, hey, by the way, and this is actually an idea I got from my mentors. They said, why not ask for value back? See if they'll pay you a referral fee for that. So I did. And they all would say yes, because what business owner in the right mind would not be more than willing to pay a referral fee to someone who's just handing over a business to them?
Yeah, exactly.
And so the next thing I know, just by referring to different people, it was about 3 or 4 or 5 different sources, I was making between $4,000 and $5,000 a month.
Wow.
And that blew my mind because I thought you would have to save millions of dollars to finally retire off the interest, live off the interest type junk, that you always that's what I believed. And all of a sudden it changed. I said, no, you don't have to. You can create real wealth today. It's all about the cash flow, not about accumulation. It's about acceleration, not accumulation.
So what do you mean by that? Like the cash flow?
Yeah, what I mean is, when I talk about cash flow, it's the difference between your income and expenses. When your income's higher than your expenses, that's positive cash flow, and that's a very good thing.
Yeah, we all like that.
We all like that, right? When you have expenses higher than your income, that's not good. That's like the worst time I've seen a business was when I was in the hole $16,000 a month.
Wow.
That was not fun.
No.
Between my business and my personal life, I was big time in the hole. That creates stress. That's also why I don't judge people. I get sick and tired of hearing financial guys and girls, both of them, just chewing people out, pointing the finger of scorn, telling you how you stink and how you're not good enough. But they're teaching you stuff that's really subpar and it doesn't work anyways. And even when you do follow their advice, if it doesn't work, they blame you. so, so yeah, I mean, that's why, I really have a lot of empathy for people, especially if you're in a situation where you want to make a different life, you want to do something different than what your parents taught you, you want to do something new and something fresh, and you want to not just do that for you, but you want to create that ripple effect through generations beyond you. That's really why I do what I do every day, because I mean, like you said, like you shared earlier in my intro, I mean, my average client of over hundreds of clients I've had, they'll find $33,000 in the first year alone, whether that's money they make, extra money they make, or money they save from, be able to be more productive with their expenses and rearranging things. And by the way, doing all that without having to live off rice and beans. So you don't have to be all cheap and have to, get angry about stuff. You can actually do it and still enjoy life and then still enjoy your family like you should, because we just don't know how long we're going to be on this earth.
So when I was looking at your website, I noticed we all have different money leaks. And I would imagine that's how you're allowing these people to find, $30,000 of cash. What are some common money leaks? I'm totally slaughtering that. What are some common money leaks?
I can barely even say that phrase. I've said it for years. The common ones really, I mean, I guess you could sum it down to a few. But I'll tell you, I've seen at least a couple dozen that I've counted. Sometimes it's the money that you never know you've lost in the first place because you never made it, but you could have, right?
Yeah.
There's things on the income side you can make. One big one, I think, is a starter for everybody. And this is the one that I hardly find anybody doing to the level that I suggest, even though it's so easy. You could do it so easily, but it's tracking your money.
Yeah.
Really looking at how much is coming in, how much is going out. And then as you're tracking that on a longer term basis, you can actually create more of a spending plan behind that. Different categories. You say, here's what I should be spending every month. If I go a little bit above or below that, fine, not a problem. I just need to make sure I'm aware of it and proactive to adjust, right?
Yeah.
That's where I see a lot of people having problems. Most people, they'll look at their account balances, mostly, and they'll do those kind of things. And they might even talk about trying to have a quote unquote budget, which I hate using that word in the first place. I think it's a naughty word. That's why I prefer spending plan.
Yeah. Because
money is meant to be used. It's meant to be spent. It's not meant to be restrictive. But what happens, a lot of people just don't keep paying close enough attention. So if they say they pay off a loan, they free up some cash, well, they'll end up consuming it within a few months anyways, and they'll feel just as broke as they were months ago before they paid it off. Flip side, if you get a raise, a lot of times this is what's referred to as Parkinson's law. When you get a raise or you free up cash in any way, shape, or form, if you don't have a plan for it, if you don't give that money a job, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
That money will be spent within a matter of 3 to 6 months. Like you'll feel the same as you did before you freed up that cash.
Oh, I've done that before, so I totally agree.
We all have, right? If we haven't done it with money, we've done it with time. Because how often have we had maybe a responsibility, lighten up, or
something gets canceled, and
something gets canceled, but next thing we know, we feel just as busy as we were previous to that, right?
Yeah.
Same concept. It applies to time and money. So it's tracking it, and I like to use tools like Mint.com. If you're just tracking for your personal family's finances, Mint.com is great. It's free. I love to be ambitiously lazy, so I like to have things done for me. So things all downloading into one place, real time. I don't have to keep track of everything. It's right there for me. I just have to go in, make sure they categorize it all right and put in the right categories, and half the time it remembers and does it right anyways. So my job is half done for me anyways. And next thing I know, I'm able to, have a nice little system. And in fact, I timed myself, this is about last year, I timed myself to see how long it would take from logging in to logging out for 1 week's worth of tracking. It took me 4 minutes and 17 seconds.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I wish I could get rock hard abs in 4 minutes and 17 seconds a week, I say that it's clarity that creates confidence. The more clear you are about what you want, and the more clear about where you are, especially with a situation like with your money, the more confident you're going to be able to move forward. Give you an example. I had a couple that they weren't tracking their money. And I tell people, especially if they're busy entrepreneurs, they say they're too busy to do it. I guarantee they're losing at least $500 to $1,000 a month. And this one couple, she wanted to retire her husband, and they wanted to work in their business together. And they're like, yeah, but we're just too scared. I mean, he's been in that job. It's kind of the security blanket. And she was making great money with her direct sales business. And so we finally got him to really get the numbers out there. And we realized, hey, if we just make a few little tweaks here, he's retired. And so he did. He had an early retirement party in his 40s.
Oh, wow.
It was awesome. And now they're both working together, moving forward together in their business. Now their income over the last year has doubled.
Because they're doing something they love, I'm sure.
Yeah. And they're still playing. They still go to Bali and stuff. And I still have a hard heck of a time trying to get them on the calendar because they're traveling around playing too much, right?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing it is. I mean, the worst thing I've ever seen, I've seen one woman that she was overspending eating out. It was like $5,600 a month.
Holy cow.
We cut it back to only $1,000 a month to eat out, not including groceries. But with that and freeing up some money in taxes, and then we did some things with some of her loans and paid some of those off. And next thing you know, she's freed up about $70,000 or so a year. And granted, her and her husband were making $250,000 a year, but they were working their tails off.
And probably didn't feel like they were making $250,000.
Oh, no. That's what was stressing them out. They're like, supposedly, the accountant told us we're making $250,000 a year.
But we're broke.
Still broke. Yeah, exactly. And it's not always spending. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I had a dentist where we found $16,000 a month in his practice, just because it was just about looking at what was going on and what was productive and what wasn't. It's really, if there's any principle you can learn beyond the strategies that I teach, it's the principle of stewardship. Is that it's not about being a spender, and it's not even about being a saver. Both of those are have the emotions of scarcity. Even being a saver, even sometimes a hoarder, right? Those people will have a hard time creating wealth. But when you're a steward, when you realize that money is meant to be used and it's to be used wisely in a way to create more, able to magnify or grow or to beautify and increase things. We're supposed to increase everything that we're given. I believe that's really a commandment that we have in our lives. And that's what blesses other lives, And so when you focus on that stewardship and you really teach your children to be good stewards of the resources of all things, time, money, talents, everything, right?
Yes.
That's when real wealth starts to happen. And if you have that focus, pretty soon you realize, like, no, I don't have to be cheap. I just need to be efficient. I need to be productive with this, right? Have fun, because you know what? That's an investment. I love when my kids and my family, all our family, my 5 kids and my wife, we go places. Even if we, some of our kids are in school, we've home taught some of our kids too, and we pull them all out and say, hey, we're going to go on a trip. Let's just have some fun. Some of those best memories, I think some of those are the best investments we've ever done. To heck with what, some of those people will say about living off rice and beans. That's ridiculous. You got to be wise. Don't overspend, but don't delay life and delay complete gratification just because you're scared about money.
Yeah.
Because it's so much easier to make money. It's really not that hard. People just make it more complex and more hard than it has to be.
This is a good time to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear more from Chris and the Money Ripple.
If you would like to see your business grow, then contact us at The Luminous Mind for advertising space on theluminousmind.net or on the podcast, The Luminous Mind Podcast.
Inspiration ignites an invisible channel. That opens between machine and soul. Fingers become mere extensions. Hands, only servants to a vast silent source, unseen.
Welcome back. One of the biggest problems that we have in the United States anymore is so many people are deeply in debt. What do we do to free up our resources on debts that we owe?
It's interesting. There are a lot of people in debt. There's a lot of people that aren't, and both still have the same problem. Both of them are still struggling. Now, if there's anything I reframe about debt, is that debt's neither good nor bad. And in fact, stop getting angry about debt. Don't do what some of those people teach out there about you should just get angry about your situation. No, that's scarcity. That drives money out of your life, not into it. Don't fear debt, because again, that will also drive money out, but do respect it. It can help you, but it can also hurt you depending on how you're using it. Here's the thing I see all the time is that people are like, well, I got to pay off this interest rate or this or this or this. Well, I see a lot of people that once they pay off all their debt, they come to me freaking out because they realize that wasn't all their expenses. They still had 80% of their income going to other stuff.
Yeah.
So the debt actually didn't make it much better. It didn't hurt. I mean, it didn't hurt, but it wasn't the freedom that everybody claims it to be. It's actually a big illusion. Now, granted, I do like to be productive. And so if paying off certain debts will produce a great return on your cash flow, those are the ones to go for. I love having people pay off loans that they have the highest payment to the loan balance ratio. Mm-hmm. Meaning that if you were looking at your loans as an investment, which one would I pay off with the least amount of cash to free up the most cash flow every month? Forget about the interest rate. Stop looking at the interest rate because it does not help you. And I've seen a lot of people get stuck and in a worse position with their debt because they keep looking at the interest rate and obeying a lot of the advice out there. But if you look at the cash flow, for example, if you had 2 loans, let's say one's a car loan that's $5,000, the other's a credit card for $5,000. The car loan's $500 a month and the credit card's $100 a month, which is pretty typical for a credit card at that balance. If you ask anybody, they'll tell you, if you only had $5,000, which one would they tell you to pay off, Rebecca?
Probably the credit card because of the interest rate.
Exactly. They'll say, hey, it's 18%, you should pay that off, or 13%, right? But I would say pay off that 4% car loan.
Yeah. Well, and your car's going down value anyway, so.
That too. But yeah, regardless, I mean, even regardless of that, the reality is that the $500 that you just freed up creates options and freedom for you to use it wisely elsewhere. Because you could take that $500, you could apply it to that credit card and pay it off faster than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that $500 could go towards, depending on where you are in life. If you're just working a typical job, it might go towards building up savings and building up that peace of mind and that emergency reserves, building up food storage or something like that. Something that could actually is real and can protect you, not a 401k ideally. Nothing like that. If you're a business owner, hey, what if that money could go back in your business and produce more than the $100 a month that the credit card is costing you? Because you could pick up $100 a month guarantee, but if you knew that $500 a month could produce $300 a month, well then great, do that and then use that $300 to then pay off the credit card. And so it's always about that stewardship of what can we do to create more. And that's where it gets to be really fun. And that's why I find so much money is because people are trying to do the stereotypical type of stuff you're always taught, the same traditional stuff, mainstream advice that hasn't worked for decades. Therefore, why would it work now?
Yeah, exactly.
If people are still financially in bondage, and not because of debt. There's a lot of people that are in less debt than in previous generations. But the problem is that still lifestyle's increasing more than wages, which is again a cash flow issue.
Yeah,
you're having things happening in the world where people are finding out that by throwing your money into a retirement account isn't necessarily making your life better today. And then what you thought was supposed to be good, like I thought, I used to think that putting that money in a retirement account eventually have lots of money, and people aren't seeing that. It's a lot of over-promising and under-delivering.
What happened to my dad is he retired. He was supposed to retire right before 2008, and then when the market crashed, his 401k was worth half of what he thought he was going to be able to retire. So
that's exactly what happened to my dad. Same thing, except it was Y2K. He was actually planning to retire around 2000, and he decided to go very heavy into tech stocks because that's what all of his coworkers were doing. Did that, lost a ton of money, and then said, "Well, I got to keep working." And he actually worked another 15 years till he just barely retired. And that's one thing I don't like when they say be in it for the long haul. Well, how long is the long haul if also the market's tank, right? I would much rather have anybody, pay off almost any debt than put their money into those kind of retirement accounts. Even if they get a match, because the match really doesn't make that much of a return as they claim it is. Most of it's marketing hype. And I talk about a lot of those numbers, but on a radio show, it's really hard to do that. So I'll leave that out. But yeah, it's when you really look at the numbers and what really makes a massive impact in people's lives, if you focus on how to create cash flow today, both reducing expenses or increasing income, it's amazing what kind of freedom you can create very quickly. And you know what? You'll have more money in the future anyways because you'll have more surplus right now.
Yeah.
So it's all part of the same equation.
Great. So what are some products and services that you offer?
I do all kinds of things. If you guys love listening to stuff on podcasts like this show, for example, I've got my own show called The Chris Miles Money Show. That's on iTunes. It's also on Blog Talk Radio. I actually even got a once-a-month show that I'm co-hosting on iHeartRadio. All kinds of stuff. So I do my own podcast. I teach different subjects, and it's totally free to the public. MoneyRipples.com is my website, which is also a great place for good free resources and updates that way. And then Facebook. People are welcome to follow me on Facebook or follow Money Ripples on Facebook. We've got lots of great stuff we share.
Oh, great. Thank you. So what are some successes that you've seen?
For me personally or for my clients or yes?
For your clients. Well, and for you personally. I'm sure you use your own financial advice for yourself, I would imagine.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I actually create a lot of these cash flow, a lot of these cash flow secrets are actually available on my website. A lot of the ones that we just kind of touched on a little bit. A lot of applying these same principles and the same strategies as well has helped me too. I was able to pay off over $900,000 of debt in just over 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is the debt, it wasn't everything. I saw to increase my income because even if I was debt free, I still would have been in the hole. I had to really battle back during that period of time. But the things that I learned work. And not only does it help me, but really hundreds of my clients, I think the cumulative total is somewhere between $50 and $60 million right now of money that people have been able to save and free up. And thing is, I love that. In fact, I want that. I think that number's small. I want that number to be in the billions. And I don't think it'll take too many more years to be there. And that's where I really get joy from because, my company's called Money Ripples because I have that vision that creates a ripple effect, that it starts with you individually as a person. It ripples out to your family and generations beyond you, where you stop that scarcity that's been passed on to us and start doing something new that creates a new future for our families. And then that ripples out to your friends and family and community and even across the country and across the world. And that's really what I'm all about, is to try to create that ripple effect more and more. And, 1% at a time, we're doing it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I was going to ask you about your long-term goals, but it sounds like you've given us some that you want to create. Great. So what advice or encouragement would you give to somebody who's just kind of starting out, trying to get their finances put together?
One, I would turn off the television and stop listening to the news and the advice that you hear on there. I would just do a clean slate. Start there. Definitely, I would check out the book I have, Beyond Rice and Beans, 7 Secrets to Free Up Cash Today. Gives you some great steps to start. That tracking the money, like I mentioned, is a great place to start.
Yeah.
I mean, be able to really just see what's going on. So many people live in fear of their money. They don't really have to. It's usually because they just don't know what's going on. There's that kind of, for lack of a better word, that ignorance or that blind spot. And when the lights are off, that's what creates fear. We're afraid of the dark. We're afraid of stubbing our toe and hitting something, right?
Yes.
When you turn the lights on, you see what's going on. Yeah, it might surprise you, like, wow, this house is messy. Oh my goodness. Wow, I didn't see all that junk in the corner there. But when you turn the lights on, you can get places a lot faster than you can stubbing your toe. And so that's where I would say start there. Start tracking your money. Start from ground one and then building from there.
Paying attention.
That's right. It's the law of attention, right? Whatever you put your attention towards expands and grows.
Yeah, exactly. So what changes would you like to see in the world in the future?
I'd like to see everybody use a Mac computer.
I've got one finally.
All right. I'm just kidding. But along those lines, one thing I love about Apple's logos and sayings they've had in the past, I love the saying that they had called "Think Different." That was their little slogan for a while, right?
Yeah.
I love that because I think that's really what's required. If you want to get different results, it requires a different way of thinking, a different way to apply principles to then get different results. And one thing I see all the time is I'd love to see people understand that there's a difference between principles and strategies. For example, you mentioned like about paying off debt, which definitely can be a really good thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Especially certain types of debts. There's some debts that really can cripple you a lot, and you want to get rid of those. But see, that's still a strategy. That's not a principle. So when someone says, the principle is to pay off debt, no, it's not. Because strategies will change over time. Principles are eternal. They never stop. The principle behind paying off the debt, when it's a good reason why to pay off the debt, is when you're trying to live within the means. Or in other words, the principle is that you produce more than you consume.
Yeah, if you have to put $5,000 on a credit card every month because you're not making that amount, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. See, that's where people talk about debt being bad, is when they're just consuming it, right? And it's not really productive. For example, if debt were so evil, well, one, why would certain schools that are Christian offer loans? Two, why would you see the Bible talking about debt being a good thing, like the parable of the talents? And then three, when it comes down to this, is that when it comes to consuming, this is where it gets crazy. People will end up constantly consuming with it, but there are productive uses of it. For example, when you buy a home, that can be a really good thing. It'd be much better to buy the home and lock in the price than try to save up and chase the price as it goes up. Lock it in and then pay it down. But if we always thought debt was always evil, if there was a principle of always paying off debt, none of us would get a mortgage. None of us would get a car loan when we needed that car to get us to a better job. None of us would do a business loan because we knew that business would make us way more than what that would cost us. I mean, that's the whole reason why we have it. It can be a good thing to use or can kill you, depending on how it's used. You have to go back to the principle underlying it, which is this allowing me to produce more than I consume? If I'm going to consume more than I produce, that's bad. That's where you're sucking. You're sucking value. You're not creating value and you're in bondage. But if you can produce more value than you consume, if you can use that in a way that's productive, then it can be good. And so go back to the principles. Like I said earlier, dollars follow value is a principle. The strategy is how do you go about creating value for people? And that's different for everybody, right? Me being an auto mechanic would not create any value. That is not a good use of my talents. But, there are other things that are. And so consider on those principles and go with those things that never change. They're eternal. They're your core. And then the strategies can adapt and change in circumstances and with time and for you. And you'll see that the answers will come much more easily when you do that.
That's interesting. I love how you talk about thinking different, because that's what we're all about here at the Luminous Mind is, doing something different and getting a better result. So great.
That's right.
So before we say goodbye, do you have any extra parting words or maybe a favorite quote that you want to share? And then I know you gave us your contact information once before, but would you just kind of reiterate that for us?
Yeah, you bet. Parting words, I'll end with a quote by Steve Martin because, it's funny and all, but it's actually a pretty serious quote. He says, be so good that they can't ignore you.
Oh, I love that.
And that can apply on a lot of different levels, obviously. That could be from an example standpoint, especially for your kids,
Yeah.
And that can also be in a standpoint of, like I said, dollars follow value, right? Like, how are you providing value and being so good at what you do that people want to have you in your life, that you're invaluable, that you're useful to them?
That they'll gladly pay you.
Exactly. And they'll gladly pay you, and they'll do anything possible to have you in your life. And I don't care, people will say, well, what if the monetary system collapses and all this stuff? I'm like, who cares? If you understand these principles, if you're useful, if you're creating value for people, even if we lose the monetary system, people will still take care of you. People will still want to offer you something to be able to give you what you need. And I think that's the core principle there, is that if this is something that would work no matter what, that's where you really want to focus, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the parting thing there. And like I said, there's so many principles. And, like I mentioned, the Chris Miles Money Show is a great show to listen to if you love listening to podcasts. And then moneyripples.com, as well as Money Ripples on Facebook. Follow me there and let me serve you and provide value for you, especially if you like to think different. Trust me, you will love this.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Chris. And we will definitely check your website out. Thanks so much.
You betcha. We'll see you.
All right. Thanks for listening to The Luminous Mind. We need more fire starters. To join us, please go to our website, theluminousmind.net, click on the Fire tab, and schedule a time today. Also, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Google+, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as iTunes and Stitcher. Help us light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.